Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of Eye of the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, Lauren Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So right now, 4chan, and I'm sure countless other video game platforms on the internet, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, are all in full damage control mode regarding Fire Emblem Engage. Like, oh, nobody's talking about this game. It's not very good. It's not very memorable. The story isn't very good. There are all these problems. This is the worst Fire Emblem game ever. Intelligent Systems has completely ruined the franchise, and it hasn't been good since Naga left. Since, like, what was that? Like FE6, I think it was, which is kind of funny to think about considering the franchise just exploded in popularity after that. Not only did it, come overseas for the first time, but it also, became a cult classic on GameCube and Wii before becoming a mainstream Nintendo mainstay with the 3DS with Fire Emblem Awakening. So, this idea that the series would just magically go away with the failure of one game is just asinine, because we've already had one terrible Fire Emblem game, post Renaissance, right? Post Awakening, and that was Fire Emblem Fates. Fire Emblem Fates is objectively the worst game ever made, and or at least the worst Fire Emblem game ever made. And so seeing people act as if a Fire Emblem is just one bad game from away from being canceled, completely disingenuous, completely untrue, and no matter how much these people meme or whine or complain and make up any narratives they possibly can, it isn't going to change the fact that Fire Emblem Engage is a great game. I picked it up, right at midnight. I downloaded it onto my Switch. I had some connection issues. I don't know what it was. I think I don't know, my provider was doing some updates or something. So, it took me a while to download it. I didn't get to play it until 1 in the morning or something. But I did sit down, play it for 5 hours straight, and realized pretty quickly that it was a masterpiece. Very similar to Fire Emblem Awakening in style and tone, with some minor adjustments to the balance and the gameplay. And this is, I think, the best gameplay we've seen from Fire Emblem in a very long time. I don't want to say it's better than a Path of Radiance, because I really don't think it is. But at the end of the day, we've the series has made a lot of evolutions and changes over the years, and I think Engage is the best, is really really good at what it's trying to get across when it comes to being a pure strategic RPG. It is a very straightforward, very formulaic, very straightforward, a very Fire Emblem game. It's a very standard anniversary title that's celebrating the history of the franchise by incorporating all of these characters in unique, interesting ways. And there is a lot of great nostalgia here. There's lots of great cameos from oh, well, not really cameos, but characters from old games have a role in the plot. They mention their history, the franchise's history, and you get lots of really really cool callbacks. This is a really good celebration of the Fire Emblem franchise. This is an anniversary title. And I think a lot of people aren't really looking at it from that perspective. The people who are complaining about the story, for example, oh, Three Houses, it had one of the deepest, most complex, narratives in video games, and they've moved away from that in order to, do this instead. Well, Three Houses is, so complex and so difficult to understand that even today, a lot of people don't really understand some of the ramifications, some of the implications of some of the lore of what actually happened in Three Houses. It is very very difficult to talk about Three Houses without people flinging opinions at each other regarding who was right and who was wrong and stuff like that. I've been victim to this. How many times have I screamed into the camera about how much I want to bang Edelgard? But objectively speaking, Edelgard is a complete retard, who has no idea what she's doing. She has no reason to succeed. She doesn't have the capability to control the entire continent. But I like her because she tries. It's adorable that she tries, honestly. And it's interesting to kind of see this, to kind of think about this in this perspective, because I liked Three Houses for what it was, but it did have problems. Engage doesn't really fix those problems. It kind of moves away from everything that Three Houses did in order to be more similar to what Awakening did. But it's more of a case of Three Houses did something new, innovative, and unique that had like a lot of kinks and a lot of issues with it, while Three Houses while Engage is sticking with what works. And there's really nothing wrong with either approach. This is like a creative medium. You can do whatever you want. There's a lot of flexibility in what you can do. You can like technically do whatever you want in fiction, and that's a big reason why I'm drawn to it. So the fact that they like went so far out of their way to make something like Engage, which is like very tonally different from every previous Fire Emblem game, with like these VTuber inspired designs, with this like very anime-esque kind of plot, with this very like very very lighthearted tone. I think Fates and Three Houses were kind of getting progressively darker from Awakening, but Engage like dials that back a lot. Awakening wasn't particularly dark to begin with, but like Engage is like lighter than that. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I think it says a lot about the quality of Fire Emblem as an IP, and that like it really can go in these kind of directions and do something wildly different with its premise, its ideas, and its general concepts. You know, it was interesting, like playing this game and like quoting like the Lord of the Rings poem, like because of how like plot relevant the rings are in this game. Like, oh, they're finding the rings of power. 9 for mortal men doomed to die. 6 for 6 for the dragon queen on her floating island. Like it's so much fun to just kind of like sit back and have this like really fun, charming adventure with these characters. And I think that's what makes the game work, is that in spite of all the changes, in spite of like how different it is from previous Fire Emblem games, at the end of the day, it is still extremely fun. And like no matter how much that like individuals try and deny it, just like they've tried to deny like Splatoon 3's success, like being the best multiplayer game of 2022, or Bayonetta 3 success, being better than Devil May Cry 5 and whatever else it was competing with at the time. Just like they denied like the popularity of Breath of the Wild, Octopath Traveler, ARMS, Mario Odyssey, like the list goes on, right? Like just the same people who are trying to convince you that Switch is losing steam and is selling less units every year are now telling you that Fire Emblem Engage is bad. And here's my question: why would you ever listen to those people? Why would you ever listen to those people? Because when you get right down to it, like before the game journos can even get their foot in their door with their ridiculous hot takes in regards to like the story or the characters, the gameplay, like I've already played the game. I don't know what the Metacritic score is. I don't know what like Jim Sterling said about it. I don't care because I'm playing the game. I've put like what was it, like 15 hours into it already, over like 2 days of play. Great game, right? It is a marvelous game. One that I think will go down as like probably hmm. I could see myself liking this more than Three Houses, honestly. Only because Three Houses is so grindy and tedious, though. Like I don't know. Like we'll have to see what the post game is like. I could see the post game for Engage being like fantastic, because the core gameplay loop has a lot of room for just like endless development and endless optimization and endless just like tweaking your character skills and stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. Really breaking the meta to this. I'm really curious just what the community comes up with. And that's the word here, the community. I don't care what people outside the Fire Emblem Engage community have to say about the game. Like there are hardcore like I've seen like hardcore Shining Force fans saying that like Shining Force 2 is better than any Fire Emblem game or something, even though there hasn't been a new Shining Force since like the 90s or whatever. Like I've seen people like bitch and moan about Tokyo Mirage Sessions for existing, you know? Ignoring the fact that like Engage seems to be like very similar to what people initially assumed Shin Megami Tensei versus Fire Emblem was going to be like. Like you see a lot of things that these people will constantly whine and complain and moan about like nonsense. And I think this is like another example of that. I think that that Engage is very successful, very popular, a very good game that certain people do not want to see succeed.